Welcome back, everyone, to the senior panel discussion. My name is Vijay Mohan, and my pronouns are he and him. I'll be your host for the panel discussion. I've been leading shopping technology at Pinterest for the last 18 months, and my focus is to bring inspirational shopping to Pinterest and make it a shopping destination where customers actually love the product they buy for life. I've spent a decade as an ML engineer myself in retail technology with focus on search, recommendations, and natural language processing as it pertains to product and query understanding. I'm really excited to have our panelists today. So let's start first with Liang.
Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here today. My name is Liang Zhang, and I lead the home and close-up engineering team at Pinterest. I'm responsible for home feed experience and related pins experience. I joined Pinterest around 1 year ago, and this is because I'm very excited with its product roadmap and opportunity to apply state-of-the-art machine learning technology to help our products succeed. So again, I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Liang. Kurchi?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kurchi Hazra, and I'm very excited to be here. I lead engineering on search at Pinterest. I've been with Pinterest for over a year now. What attracted me about Pinterest is the fact that the app is a recommendation tool, has tons of data for one to build models on top of, and has, in my opinion, solid leadership support for building machine learning based solutions for differing problems of our pinners. So, once again, excited to be here, and back to you, Vijay.
Yeah. The next one is Akansha.
Hi everyone, I'm Akanksha Bhatt. I guess I'm the newest member of this panel. I've only been here about 3 months. I head our ads marketplace efforts. To put it in a nutshell, our main goal is basically to manage the trade-offs between our users, our advertisers, and pinners itself. I'm very excited to be here. Background wise, I think I've spent roughly 10 odd years in the e-commerce and ad space at a few different companies. And like I said, I'm very excited to be here. So I'll bounce this back to Vijay.
Thank you, Akansha, for coming and speaking to us. Longbin?
Hello, everyone. I'm Longbin. I've been with Pinterest for a little bit over 1 year. Right now, I'm managing the ads targeting at Pinterest. I want to share the reason that I joined Pinterest because it's because of all the great machine learning people here. Pinterest has a great machine learning community that I enjoy working with every day. Thank you. Back to you, Vijay.
Sure, let's get the party started. So to kind of kick things off, the first question I want to ask you is, what are you really excited about in your roadmap? What does your team feel are the technical challenges? What is the frontier you're trying to beat, etc.? Just to avoid race conditions, I will ask Kurshi to start this off.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. So I'll talk about search because I work on search. So search on Pinterest is a very unique problem where we strive to deliver inspirational ideas to pinners given a query, as opposed to delivering just one right answer, which is usually the case for most search engines. We're excited about a new vision on search where we will double down on deeper query intent detection leveraging transformer-based technologies with the hope to deliver unique landing page experiences for important verticals for our pinners. Personalization is going to be a key aspect for our future improvements as well, where we are thinking about how we can model a user's journey on Pinterest into our search ranking models. In addition, we are transitioning into the world of deep learning, just like everybody else in the industry. And we have built a multi-head model to predict various facets of user engagement on search. And a difficult problem there for the team has been to tackle how do we leverage limited human relevance data in this model. Last but not the least, I wanted to mention that we also work on shopping search. And we are actually beginning to think about queries where we have to deliver that one right answer? And how do we optimize our systems so that we are also good at that use case? I will popcorn it to Leanne next.
Yeah, very well said, Kerchi. So I'm very excited with the new Pinterest creator strategy. And the strategy allows the creators to create their own inspiring content on Pinterest. And my team, along with Kerchi's team, are responsible for delivering this content to our pinners with a personalized and engaging experience. This involves building and applying a lot of state-of-the-art machine learning technologies, right? For example, graph-based neural networks, transformer-based encoding models. We have a lot of cool technology just there to model user activities and making sure the recommender systems are working properly. Another challenge is how we properly balance the trade-off between optimizing for pinner engagement and creator growth. This means we need to make sure good creators' content get delivered efficiently to pinners with an engaging experience. The more one creator's content gets shown and acted upon, the more the creator will get motivated to create some other great content. As we are doing this, gradually we'll have a large and diversified content pool to recommend to our pinners and naturally drive more engagement over time. So I'm going to pass this to Akanksha.
Sure. Thank you, Liam. So I work in ads, so I'll talk about a few things that I'm excited on the ad side. So Pinterest is a product that is quite widely liked by its user base. And since I work on the monetization front, the next step that I see is basically monetizing this and then monetizing this in a responsible fashion. So to this end, there's some efforts that I'm very excited about. One is basically how we model long-term value. So if you make a change in the short term, what is the long-term merits of it? What will it yield in the long term? I think we're using reinforcement learning, some causal modeling, etc., to kind of have interesting solutions to those problems. That's one frontier where I'm quite excited to see how we move the needle. Another one is automated tuning tools. So things change on a daily basis in terms of advertisers coming into the system, seasonality, how users interact, all sorts of things. So even there's a lot of room for automated tuning tools to come in and get you to the right trade-offs, because that's essentially the crux of what my team does. So bringing more automation, more machine learning into those domains, that's another thing that I'm quite excited about. I'll popcorn this to Longman.
Thank you, Akasha. Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's so many challenging and make us excited about in monetization org. I also like to point out something that's very unique to my team at the ads targeting team. Ads targeting is a tool that we designed for our advertiser to specify their audience. So one of our team's goal is to build such a tool so that a tool that is useful, it's powerful, it's easy to use, a comprehensive tool for advertiser to define their audience. On the other hand, for every user, we want to also find enough good quality ad candidates such that their experience wouldn't be too bad. So building a bridge between the user and the advertiser, such that we could have find enough good match between them, would be the biggest challenge for ads targeting team, and actually it's the mission of the ads targeting. And that's something that makes the whole team very excited and happy about. Yeah.
Thank you, Longben. As a passionate pinner myself, I'm really happy to see you say things like inspiration and advertising in the same line. It tells me that we are going to build an amazing product that's going to be interesting for me to use. Just before we get into the next question, I want to make a housekeeping announcement. We are taking questions through the course of this panel discussion, and we'll ask them towards the end. So if you have some questions as you hear them, just drop it in, and then we'll try to prioritize based on how many people are asking the same kind of question, and I'll ask them as I find a good opportunity to ask them. Okay, moving on. Akanksha, since you said you are the newcomer to the Pinterest family, before you get corrupted with our ideas, I want to ask you, right? What are some unique perspective or interesting things you've noticed in pins? What are your favorite things, like the sound of music?
So I do like the fact that I think a lot of the people in here actually use the product. I do like the fact that we essentially, do what we say. So machine learning is definitely front and center in a lot of what Pinterest does. It's not just marketing speak. It's actually first principles. There is a lot of that. There's a lot of push towards like automation and not babysitting things like Deepak said, etc. So I think that's one thing that I had heard it from the outside, but it's actually I'm very, very pleasantly surprised to see that is what things are like inside as well.
Very cool. Ruchi, you said Pinterest is an recommendations engine, right? So my question to you is, even I've seen this, right? When I go to Pinterest, I'm typing all these really broad queries, right? And not giving you a lot of signal to act upon, unlike other search engines, right? So how are you thinking about guiding our pinners?
That's right. So Pinterest actually, Pinterest searches tend to be very, very broad. Around 71% of searches on Pinterest are actually 1 to 3 word broad queries like Easter ideas, healthy recipes, and dinner recipes. Now, what our pinners are actually looking for when they're issuing these kind of queries is just some inspiration and ideas in their day-to-day work. But from our perspective, it's actually a very hard problem for us to understand how to satisfy the pinner's intent given the billions of pins that we have to serve them. So the way we're trying to solve for this issue is by providing our pinners with more guidance as they're going through their journey of using Pinterest. For a very broad query like dinner recipe, we are working on leveraging more knowledge graph-based technologies, just like Deepak mentioned about the taste graph in his keynote, and showing more modules and hints to users on their journey to getting to that one idea that might inspire them. This actually becomes even more important for shopping, where we know that for narrower queries, for something like leather couch boho style, those kind of queries actually have higher conversion probability. And that's where we want to help pinners to get more specific from any broad inspirational queries like living room couches. So we are also able to aid them in their shopping journey. So those are some things that we've been thinking about in the team. And
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me. When the pandemic started, I wanted to know how to do gardening. So I started with gardening ideas. And then it became, oh, I need a raised bed. So how do I build a raised bed? It kind of diversified. And I felt like you're taking me through different stages of evolution of my own ideas. So very interesting technology. Thank you for that, Kurchi. Liang, you want to add anything on top of that about how home feed and how you think about that from a recommendations perspective?
Yeah, so I think one of the differences between search and home feed recommendation systems are, search user comes with a query, and for people who come to home feed or going to related pins, we don't have a query, right? So what that means is that we need to deeply understand the user's intent when they come to the home feed, first of all, right? And when I say intent, it's not like specifically only the short-term intent. It also means the long-term interest, right? So what that means is that we need to deeply understand both our pinners' short-term interest as well as their long-term interests. And for example, the short-term interest can be very seasonal, right? Like this time around this time of year, a lot of people who come to Pinterest are interested in Halloween-related things, right? And these kind of interests can be modeled in two ways. The first way is to model it from our knowledge graph, which are the explicit way of modeling this, right? And the second way to model this is actually implicitly, which is through deep learning, through the embedding-based approach, right? And we apply both explicit interest as well as implicit interest in our state-of-the-art deep learning recommendation models, so that we can optimize for the engagement. So, this model includes both a transformer encoded user activity embedding and also embeddings from the content learned from its visual and text signals. So that would be my answer.
That's awesome. Longbin, I'm going to come back to you about that ads, relevance, and inspiration question. How do you do it? What's the magic?
Yeah, we have a lot of secrets. Yeah, but I mean, in general, we have two stages that to make sure our ads is relevant to user. At the targeting stage, the advertiser specifies some criteria like user interest, keywords that they would target. So at targeting stage, you want to make sure that the user or the search query they type in could match what the advertiser wants. That's on the first stage of ads targeting. We have a second stage that build on ads relevance model, which either filter out irrelevant ads or promote very, very relevant ads, right? By combining these two, along with other engagement metrics, conversion models, we could, make sure that the ads we deliver to our user is relevant, engaging, with a good experience.
Interesting. Awesome. Switching gears a little bit, like every couple of years in the last decade or so, we see some key publication, right, that has led to next 2 years being a new area. For example, transformers, everybody's working on transformers, attention networks, right, re-emergence of LSTMs, GANs, etc., right? What are you really excited about and why? Do you want to start this off, maybe Liang? You want to start us off with something?
Yeah. So I am actually very excited with a lot of state-of-art machine learning technologies. Especially, I actually close watch how deep learning goes, and always try my best to apply the deep learning technologies to the recommendation systems, to search systems, and just try to just try to integrate with try my best to integrate with this kind of state-of-art technologies into our systems, right? And a lot of times I found that those state-of-art models are really, really useful, right? But there's one thing that I want to say, which is our deep understanding of the product is also important in this whole journey, because that what means that we need to first get the data right. When we have a product, we first need to get data right, and after we have the data, then we can apply the technologies that we learn from papers, etc., and also like into these kind of problems. And another thing is later on what we have found is, actually there is something that we can even do to these technologies themselves and make that technology even better. Through learning of the application.
That's a very interesting insight. In the past, same thing has happened to me. We take a paper, we'd be very excited about it, you apply it, nothing works, and then you say, they made these assumptions that are not true for our product, and then you change that a little bit, and boom, it starts working, right? Very, very true. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about if you all, you've all been practicing ML and become leaders for over a decade now. For someone who's listening to you all, I want to see if you have any advice on, should I work as an engineer starting out in small problems, or should I go deep on one problem? Should I do PhD? Should I not do PhD? A lot of these questions are there in all the people who are attending this talk, right? So maybe, Liang, I'm going to go back to you again, if you don't mind, since we have you on the mic already.
Yeah, happy to. So I think it depends on what stage we are at our career, right? So for people who just graduated from the school, I actually highly recommend to go deep on one problem, starting from like understanding the context, understanding the objective, understanding the product, right? This is also related to what I just said, right? Deeply understand what is the reason that we need to solve this problem. And then we iteratively build machine learning models towards the state of the art. And gradually, as you been working for many years, and then I would recommend start looking at a few more problems, right, at the same time. That will be useful because it will allow you to have a variety of experiences on different kinds of machine learning problems. But with this said, I still think that focusing on too many problems at the same time may not be a good idea. So fewer things done better is always a good principle to follow.
Yeah, I wanted to actually just second what Liang said. I strongly believe that you need to build really good product intuition, understand usage patterns, and know that the data that's really essential for building good models. And in order to build that intuition, you have to spend some time going deep in one problem or in one product space. And so my advice would be to always, start going deep on one problem, spend some respectable span of time reaping benefits and rewards out of that deep knowledge that you gain, and then move on to other problems when the return on investment is not that high on a particular problem. But also just wanted to caveat it by, once you start going deep, like, you can go off direction as well. So I think it's very important to develop the right hypothesis, right offline metrics to measure progress for yourself.
Fantastic. Long, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would love to. I just pleasantly surprised to find that I have pretty much a similar opinion with Liang or Kurt. In my opinion, a great machine learning engineer usually has fair amount of knowledge about machine learning problems in different domains, like NLP, like computer vision, search and recommendation, or even bioinformatics. A great machine learning engineer also has the capability to go deep into a very specific problems if needed. My recommendation would be similar to Liang, like in your early career or in your PhD study, go deep. Don't hesitate, just go deep. Really, use the skills or learn the skills that are necessary, like critical thinking, math, stats, machine learning theories, programming, infrastructure. Go deep, solve one or two, a couple of critical problems, and then later you get exposure to much wider range of problems. That's going to help you to be able to oversee, more problems or oversee a large team.
I could jump in for just a second. So I agree with everything that everybody said. Right? I'll just reiterate Liang's product point once again. So as you go deeper into something, right, like make mental notes of the gaps you notice in other things, because at least earlier in my career, as I was going deeper into a problem, I'd spend a year working on something, but then I'd come up with like multiple ideas and gaps that I could then execute on for subsequent years. So go deeper, but also keep that product perspective in mind. Keep yourself oriented. I found that has worked for me at least.
Yeah, very, very insightful. Thank you, Akansha.
All right, Vijay, I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The other way around. So thanks for asking us all the question, but you've been an ML engineer for a long time. Would you like to add anything else about how to grow?
In terms of advice?
Yeah,
sure.
In terms of advice.
I think you all, it's very hard to go last, but I'll try about this because you all had good advice to give everyone. One thing I found is that at least as an ML engineer, if you try to become only an ML engineer, it becomes very hard to transition as an ML leader in the future, or just a leader, technology leader, when you have to bring heterogeneous teams together. So I would say if you're in an early part of your career, just grab opportunities to also do non-ML stuff, right? If there is a small UI that needs to be done to ship a product, just jump on it. It'll be kind of hard for you the first time, but you will kind of get a perspective for how everything works in the system, so that when you are a leader, you can have you can play an unbiased arbiter, if you will, to make some technology choices that can be solved through ML, that can be solved through user experience, that can be solved through some data munging kind of stuff. Yeah, so I think that's one thing I would add to everything you said. We've been getting a lot of questions, so I'm going to cut my part of it short and see if I can find some good questions to ask. See, yeah, this is an interesting one. How do you all balance long-term value versus short-term gains? What do you do? Do you have any suggestions?
I can take this if that's okay, because we're looking at this a little from the ads perspective. So, as an example, let's say I make a huge quality launch, and then I'm seeing that my dollar-related metrics are not moving in the right direction. Then you want to basically invest in those kind of things because it's good for the user long term. It's good for the business long term if it's good for the user long term, right? So you do need strong frameworks to kind of help you make those trade-offs effectively. Some of them are based so there are two factors that go into it. One is basically how leadership decides to invest in it, how invested you're in your product, how much you believe in the product actually doing well. Some decisions are made based on that. Some actually can be system-based decisions where you model long-term value effectively, where you basically say this short-term change in my system will essentially translate into this in long-term value once users have had time to learn the changes and then react to them. So I think these are definitely problems we're working to tackle at Pinterest. So if folks are interested, this would be the right time to come join us and work on these problems. So
I could also take that question in a different light and like with more specifics for search. It's a surface where it's a very, very important surface for Pinterest. There are, billions of queries coming in and lots of exposure to pinners. So while we many a times do have business goals that we have to cater to, but we actually believe that relevance is very, very important. So given a query, we have to surface pins and ideas that are relevant to the query. And on our side, for example, we hold a very high bar for relevance, and we make sure that we don't launch anything that regresses relevance. So all the time we try to balance out any business metric gains with relevance and make sure that we're never regressing the search engine. So that's one way that on search we trade off between the two.
Yeah, I think you're all saying, I'm hearing that we have strong conviction that we believe in the long-term gains and willing to sacrifice short-term, hacks or whatever you want to call it for the long-term gains, right? That's what we are saying, right? Relevance is a very long-term aspirational thing that we want to keep maintaining, right? Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. There's another question. I think this was directly for Kurchi. So let's start that one. I'm going to read it verbatim. I would love to know your thoughts on the concepts of optimization that are used in search queries. Given they run through billions of clustered pins, I'm interested on response times and how the results suggested are most appropriate.
Yeah, so it's a complicated answer, but I can give you some high-level understanding of how our systems are set up. On search, actually, we do retrieval both based on text as well as embeddings. So, and then the problem is different in the two domains. For the text-based system, what we try to do is for retrieving particular pins, we try to have very fast skip list-based indexing systems that help us get results in milliseconds time frame. And then our embedding retrieval, we use it's kind of like a research area almost, how to do great nearest neighbor search, and we use good technologies there built by our infra and applied science teams to get results fast. And after that, after we have a layer of candidates, we have multi-tiered approach of how many results get ranked, and then the best results make to the next tier, and so on. And in the ranking stack, we have different kind of modeling objectives. One, for example, based on relevance, another on engagement. And in different parts of the stack, we trade them off separately, differently. And ultimately, when we do surface results up, we make sure then that they are of the highest quality that we could try. In end-to-end time, the this is like a complicated system, but end to end, we try to keep it somewhere in 1 or 2 seconds time frame to serve up the results. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of optimization going on throughout this stack.
Yeah, Khushi, I think you subtly mentioned the infrastructure piece, but it's a very important thing. I think we can highlight, right?
Exactly.
Our infrastructure team is like our fuel to go and innovate, right? Because they solve all these hard performance problems so that our ML engineers can continue to innovate, try out the latest state-of-the-art techniques, right? And then we say, hey, get it in 10 milliseconds, and they go and figure out, they do their magic to make
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Cool. There is another question, which is how are you guys, how are you all staying on top of trends given the rapid changes in this space?
Yeah, I can take this one first, maybe.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of ways. One is to read papers that are like, in the top conferences. And the other way that I found very effective is to read the blog posts or the the publications from the companies directly, right? So in the former, a lot of times what you see is that, and when I say the former is the papers, right, from conferences. What you see is like almost a lot of them are like research based, are like the technology, right? But at the later, if you look at the blog posts that Pinterest published, a lot of our blog posts are also about how do we apply this machine learning technology in a real application system? How do we solve real world problems that Pinterest have? So I would say both ways are very important to stay on top of the trend, right? So that'll be my answer.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else want to jump in and share some wisdom on what they do to keep up with the space?
I think one thing that would be useful to mention is we actually have a lot of community around machine learning, even inside Pinterest. We have ML lunches, for example, that's also organized by many folks here who are organizing this day. And those are really great opportunities for all of us to just stay abreast with the industry. So even inside Pinterest, I think there's a great support from community to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, reminds me of the time when we used to be in graduate school. My professor, we used to have these things where we have to go read a paper and present to the whole group.
Right.
When I attend these ML lunches, that's exactly what it feels like, right? Somebody else is doing the hard work of reading it and then explaining it to you. You're like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Another question is, are recommendations powered mostly by information retrieval-based approaches? Lately, techniques from RL are being incorporated in recommendation and personalization space. I think the question is around the information retrieval, and not clear what the question around the RL is here, but answer however you feel like. Maybe who wants to answer, Liang or Kurchi? Longbin, if you want to jump in, that's great. Maybe the question is not very clear, so that's why I feel like
I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think the same thing that I mentioned, right? Like for search, for example, we do retrieval based on both information, classic information retrieval, text-based retrieval, also like deep learning, embedding-based retrieval. So I think we're trying to leverage both kinds. Many of our recommenders are built just on embeddings. So versus using the classical stack of candidate generation and then ranking on top of that.
Yeah.
That could be one way to answer this, but if anyone else has ideas.
Yeah, so I want to provide some insights into the reinforcement learning in the recommendation space, right?
Right.
So I feel that this doesn't conflict with the information retrieval, right? Because information retrieval is more at the retrieval stage, and also like later on we can also do the ranking. And when we do the ranking, you have the optimizing function that you need to optimize for. And that optimized function is actually can be reinforcement learning based, meaning that you can look at the future reward in the next cycle, or even in the next cycle, etc., right? You can look at very long term in the future and put that into your recommendation function to be optimizing for at the current stage. So it's I would say that it's a combination that these days everyone is doing in the industry, right? Yeah. So this is also related to the ones that I was talking about, which is like when we are optimizing for the entire ecosystem, we not only want to optimize for the short-term gains that about pinner engagement, we also want to optimize for the creator ecosystem to make the entire creator ecosystem successful, right?
Yeah.
Again, like in the optimization function, you can have both short-term and long-term gains here together to make it work.
Yeah. Thank you, Liang. So last question, we are coming to the close, and the last question is, how do you balance doing good in the system, removing bias, ensuring fairness, hitting product metrics set for the quarter? How do you kind of balance them?
I can jump in and talk about search a little bit again, because we do have this dilemma on search a lot, where we sometimes have business metrics, product metrics that we set out for a quarter or half. However, the great thing about Pinterest is the product itself actually strives to remove bias, strives to ensure fairness. So when we are working on our inclusive features and inclusive search efforts, where we have a cohort of features around making sure that all pinners are enjoying Pinterest. So some of those product metrics are actually helping with the first one that is mentioned in this question, where we try to make sure that our ML systems are fair. And then the second thing I can mention is, in general, we are as an engineering team, we try to make sure that there is a balance between what kind of business metrics we are setting up and make space for the team to focus on foundational aspects.
Yeah.
I think that really helps us make more progress in machine learning by not getting bogged down by a lot of product metrics to follow.
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing to what you said. Organizationally also, we are set up so that the people who care about fairness and biases are outside of the people who care about moving the metrics. So we have some kind of an internal policing to make sure they're all operating in sync, right? That's something I wanted to say as well. Longben, you wanted to add anything from the ads perspective, how you're dealing with this?
Yes, I'd love to. One reason that I love Pinterest is, Pinterest provide great product and with good feeling. That's why we want to make sure that the content, the ad we serve is really respecting users. We are no bias against any category of user. And we also more importantly, we want to respect users' privacy. Probably a lot of people know about iOS 14 changes that really put a lot of concerns on how we could use users' private data for ads. We're going to get hit, probably get some hits on the revenue side, but still we want to make sure that our users' privacy is reserved, and that's more like hard requirement for us, and we are not compromising those.
Thank you, Longben. Okay, I think that's a wrap for us. I do want to remind you that we're taking a 15-minute break, and then we have amazing lightning talks. If you want to know how all the systems work and some of the algorithms, it'll be in the lightning talks. So I've seen some of them during the preview, so don't miss them. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Bye, everyone.